Under the glow of the blood moon, nightmares awaken. Tonight, another story begins. I should have turned back the moment the road ended. The dirt track had narrowed into a tunnel of trees, their twisted branches clawing against my windshield like fingers. My phone had lost signal nearly an hour ago, and the world outside my headlights looked like something pressed between pages, flat, silent, and endless. Ashthorne Manor wasn't on any official maps. I had found it in an old county record, a single mention buried in a forgotten archive. Estate foreclosed, occupants deceased. No pictures, no explanations. Just a name, and a warning whispered through the town I had stopped in for directions. The house is still waiting. It doesn't let go. Locals had laughed nervously when I pressed for more. Some swore the walls inside moved, that staircases turned back on themselves. Others said people had entered, only for their belongings to be found years later, neatly stacked on the porch, but no trace of the owners. By the time I reached the front gate, I could feel the weight of those words. The wrought iron was rusted, half consumed by ivy, but it groaned open with the gentlest push, as if expecting me. The drive was choked with weeds, yet I swore I could see faint tire marks in the dirt, fresh enough that someone, or something, had been here before me. And then the house revealed itself. Ashthorne Manor rose like a corpse unburied, its windows hollow, its roof slouched under decades of rot. But there was something more, a strange symmetry that unsettled me. No matter where I stood, the house seemed to tilt toward me, like it was leaning closer. Watching. I should have turned back. But I didn't. I clipped the recorder to my jacket, switched on the camera strapped to my shoulder, and pushed through the front doors. They opened too easily. The smell hit me first: damp wood, mildew, and something faintly sweet, like old fruit left to rot. My flashlight cut across the grand foyer. A chandelier hung crooked, its crystals dull with dust. Wallpaper peeled in long strips like shedding skin. The staircase curled upward into shadow, each step sagging as though exhausted by time. The silence wasn't empty. It was thick, as if the house was holding its breath. I spoke into the recorder. Day 1, initial entry. The structure is unstable, but intact. Locals claim it's haunted. I'm here too. My voice cracked. I told myself it was the dust, the still air. But the truth? The house was listening. I moved down the hall, every step an echo swallowed too quickly. The walls were lined with portraits, or rather, outlines of portraits. The faces had been scratched out. Every frame held a figure, but their eyes, mouths, entire heads had been gouged away with deliberate cruelty. In the silence, a sound rose. A faint, steady hum, low and constant, like electricity buzzing deep in the walls. But the house had no power. I froze. The hum wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from deeper inside. I raised my flashlight and noticed something strange. The hallway behind me didn't look the same as when I entered. The wallpaper was different, the chandelier gone, the doors rearranged. The house had changed while I wasn't looking. I whispered into the recorder, though my hand shook around it. Documented shift in architecture. Possible trick of light, or I'm not alone here. And then, from upstairs, I heard it. A footstep. Not mine. Not imagined. Heavy, deliberate, pressing into the creaking wood above me. I held my breath, every nerve screaming to run. But instead, I whispered into the dark. Hello? The hum cut out. The silence pressed tighter. And then the chandelier above me swayed. Slowly, back and forth, though there was no wind. That was when I realized. The house hadn't just been waiting. It had been watching. I stood frozen in the foyer, the chandelier swaying above me, dust drifting like ash. Somewhere in the shadows upstairs, something had moved. A single, deliberate step that carried too much weight to be imagination. I forced my body forward, one foot, then another, climbing the staircase. Every step groaned as though the house itself resented my presence. My flashlight trembled across the banister, where I found deep scratches carved into the wood, jagged and long, as though some desperate hand had clung there. But the marks weren't leading upward. They dragged downward. Whatever had made them hadn't been trying to escape. It had been pulled back inside. The upstairs hallway was too long. Far too long. I knew the structure from outside. The house was wide, not deep. But the hall stretched endlessly, doors lining each side like teeth. My flashlight beam caught on one door painted a pale, fading blue. The paint was chipped, flaking under my touch. I pushed it open. The air inside was colder. A child's bedroom. Broken toys scattered across the floor. A dresser, toppled and split. A rocking horse slumped on its side like a carcass. And in the corner, a porcelain doll. Its glass eyes were cracked, one painted cheek fractured like a spiderweb. I raised the recorder. Bedroom. Toys remain. Evidence of. The doll moved. Its head tilted. Slowly, deliberately, the broken eyes meeting mine. I dropped the recorder. It hit the floor with a sharp click, the sound far too loud in the silence. I scrambled back, kicking through dust. The doll didn't move again. It only watched. My breathing was too fast. I backed into the hallway, nearly tripping over the threshold. My flashlight beam slid across the corridor until it stopped at the end, at a door that was different from the rest. It wasn't painted. It wasn't wood. It was black. Not black with age, but black like the absence of light, a surface that swallowed my flashlight beam. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. My skin prickled with static, like standing before a storm. I should have turned away. But I didn't. The doorknob turned. Slowly. Not by my hand. The hinges groaned as the door swung open to reveal a corridor beyond. But it wasn't a room. It wasn't even part of the house. It stretched forward, endless and crooked, walls slanting inward, floor sloping down. I stepped inside, though my every nerve screamed not to. My footsteps echoed too loudly. Each step multiplied, as though unseen feet walked beside me, behind me, surrounding me. The hum returned, deeper now, rattling through my bones. And beneath it, voices. Whispering. Layered. Overlapping. They were whispering my name. I stopped, hard hammering. Who's there? My voice cracked in the darkness. The whispers cut off. But the echo of footsteps didn't. I spun, raising the flashlight. The door I had entered through was gone. The corridor twisted in both directions, identical, infinite. The walls seemed closer now, pressing in. I staggered forward, desperate to find any end. And then, a corner. I turned it and nearly screamed. The foyer. But not the foyer I had entered earlier. No, this one was clean. Restored. The chandelier above gleamed with polished crystal, reflecting candlelight though I saw no flame. The wallpaper was whole, golden and elegant. And the portraits, the ones I had seen with faces gouged out, were restored. Their features intact. Dozens of them lined the walls, every man, woman, and child rendered in perfect detail. And every single painted face had turned. Their eyes were fixed on me. I stumbled backward. My hand struck the banister. And that was when I felt it, something cold. Fingers curling around my own. Not seen, not flesh, but a grip as solid as iron. The recorder slipped from my other hand, clattering to the floor. And then, in the ringing silence, a voice whispered against my ear. Close. Too close. A whisper from a mouth that wasn't there. You shouldn't have come. The voice still echoed in my ear when the hand let go. My skin burned where it had touched, though the air was cold enough to frost breath. I stumbled back, desperate to flee the painted eyes that watched from their gilded frames. The chandelier above flickered. The glow dimmed, the crystals shuddered, and with a groan like metal tearing, the light went out. Darkness smothered the foyer. My flashlight, weak and trembling, barely cut through it. I fumbled for the front door, but it wasn't there. Where there should have been wood and brass, there was only wall. Wallpaper stretched seamlessly, as though the exit had never existed. Panic clawed at my throat. I spun, searching for any way out, and there, beyond the staircase, I saw movement. shadows sliding along the wall though no body cast them. They were tall, impossibly tall, stretched like broken marionettes. Their heads tilted in jerks and spasms, their limbs too long, their fingers brushing the floor. And they were coming toward me. I bolted up the stairs. My feet hammered the steps, with groaning beneath my weight. The whispers returned, louder, layered, a dozen voices murmuring at once. I reached the landing and tore down the hallway. Doors slammed shut around me, one after another, as if the house itself was driving me forward. At the end of the hall, another door yawned open. Black, gaping, inviting. I had no choice. I hurled myself inside. The world shifted. The air thickened like water, pressing against my skin. My ears rang with pressure, and the corridor around me stretched impossibly far. The walls bent inward, narrowing, forcing me into a descent. The floor tilted down, steeper, until I was stumbling, sliding, falling. And then I landed hard on stone. The flashlight clattered beside me, its beams sweeping across walls that weren't wood, but brick. Damp, glistening with moisture. A cellar. No, not a cellar. Something far older. Archways rose overhead, curved and crumbling. Chains dangled from hooks sunk deep into stone. The air reeked of mildew and something coppery beneath it, the stink of rust or blood. I lifted the recorder with shaking hands. My voice was barely a whisper. Basement structure, older than house. Possibly. The tape hissed, drowning me out. A screech of static filled the hall. And over it, another voice. Not whispering now. Clear. Strong. You shouldn't have come. I dropped the recorder. It hit the floor, its reels spinning wildly. The beam of my flashlight swung across the chamber. And in that light I saw them. Dozens. No, hundreds. Figures lining the walls. Pale, translucent, half-formed. Men in tattered suits. Women in torn dresses. Children clutching their toys, eyes hollow. They stood in silence, packed shoulder to shoulder, their mouths open but soundless. Watching. Waiting. I staggered back. My heel struck something. I turned, and my stomach dropped. A staircase rose behind me. But it was wrong. The steps twisted upward into nothing, vanishing into black. The same staircase I had climbed before, but here, underground, where no staircase should be. And then the figures moved. As one, they turned their heads. Their mouths opened wider. A sound rose from them, low and droning, a moan that rattled the air and made the stone tremble. Chains rattled overhead. Dust rained from the ceiling. The house was alive. And it was hungry. I ran. Through archways, through tunnels that bent in impossible angles, the moaning growing louder, following me, chasing me through the dark. My flashlight beam sputtered, flickering out, plunging me into black. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed whole. And then, ahead, light. A door. Wooden, splintered, cracked. I lunged, slamming into it with all my weight. It gave way, and I spilled onto cold earth. Night air. Real, sharp, freezing. I was outside. The house loomed behind me, its windows black and hollow. Silent. Waiting. I staggered to my feet, chest heaving, and dared one final glance back. And in the top window, I saw it. A face. Pale. Watching me. The same face I had seen in the portraits. The same voice that had whispered in my ear. It smiled. And the front door, the door that had vanished, was open again. Inviting. Waiting. The house never lets you leave for long.